Swift, and her boy Joey. Is actually my sister. She's an Irish girl, but they're living in Grenoble, over in France. And Collete and Matt are going to tell their story about Joey, about their story as how they ended up in Grenoble and about the ELA, which is the European Leukodystrophy Association, the condition that Joey has. And Joe over the Collete and Matt.
Well done for being here, because I know you're all on your return break, and it's fantastic that you're taking the time out to listen and to better yourselves and do things these few days. John asked me to come and have a chat with you, and I said, with pleasure. I was trying to think, my God, John, why do you want me to come down and chat to you? What could we pass, what could we impress on or share with you that might help you in your path in your future? And I got thinking, and I thought, well, there's two things from being an older person, having been, say, once in your age bracket, and I suppose if I can get across two things with our little story, where we've got to where we are today, is two crucial things and two things that have helped us when life has kind of thrown difficult punches at us. And the first thing is for all of you to believe, and really, no matter what happens in your lives to come, no matter how difficult things get, believe that inside of you, every one of you, you have a deep resource for yourself. And no matter what life throws at you, you can get through most things, pretty much everything. But you have to believe that you have these inner resources to get you through anything. And the second thing is, no matter how negative something might seem in your life, whether it seems like a massive hassle, or a hurt, or an ache, or something that you're going through, it might seem huge and it might be heartbreaking, but there's always a golden lining. There's always something very positive and something to learn from every negative experience. And I'll just explain very simply how some negatives, like some inner experiences where I've tried to believe in myself, where that got me, and then how it's kind of evolved and taken us to where we are today. So I'm from Fermoy, I grew up in Dublin, and then when I finished school I went to DCU in Dublin and did communication studies. So once we graduated, I thought, I had a job, where to get a job, so I applied loads of different jobs in Ireland, and it was a bit tricky at the time. So I went up to London, found a job in London, and from my first days of my job, there was a train strike, tube strike, and I had no way of getting to work. So I went to the other side of London, what am I going to do? So I went and bought myself a bike, and I went, right, I'll get there. And at the time that seemed like a hassle, so I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have to get to work. So anyway, I got to the bike, on the bike, and actually biking became something that I loved, and it became part of my life, and very much a big part. So much so that 8 years after that, alongside my work, I was on the start line of the World Championships for cycling. So I represented Ireland, I was captain of the Irish team. And then I went on to do a second World Championships, and did loads of events. It took me around the world. I cycled in Japan, in Switzerland, in Italy, in Ireland, in England, in Belgium. And it was a fantastic experience. And when I was working in London, I thought, oh my God, I'm here, I'm so lonely, I missed everyone at home. What have I done? Why have I left? And I can remember my father saying, if you don't get a job, you're not coming back in a month. I don't want you living in a box. So I was like, right, I had to get, the whole career side of it sorted as well. And I had no friends, and well, I had one, but it got very lonely. So I thought, right, what can I do? So I joined a sports club and met and have still got the best friends that we've made from that time. And sport you're on your own and you want to, make your own mark. I joined a triathlon club, got to meet some great friends, ended up meeting Matt, and then in 2000 the two of us started on the start line for European Championships. There were long distance, long course Ironman triathlon. So we had this romantic event. 11 and a half hours later, I was put on a drip because I clapped at the finish line because I thought I was going to do that. I did it. And then we had this dream because we loved cycling, we loved sport, and we thought, wouldn't it be fabulous, because we were living in London at the time and there was a lot of commuting, a lot of hours working, and we thought, if we ever have families, this is the kind of quality of life that we want. So we thought, we've been with the cycling club over and back to France in quite a bit. And we thought, the roads are safer, the roads are smoother, there's a culture there for, they love eating and drinking and relaxing. So we thought, we'd give it a shot. We'd try and improve our French. We had our school French, which was rubbish. And so we thought, we'll do that. So we spent a year learning French. We went every week. And we were rubbish. Absolutely rubbish. We thought, this can't happen. We're never going to live this dream. It's not going to happen. We can't do it. So we dropped the idea. We said, it's not going to happen. A couple of years later, Matt had a phone call from a former colleague of his, and he said, Matt, I think there's a job out here that you might like. It happens to be in France. It's an American company, what do you think? So we were after starting renovating a house that we got in London. And we looked at the situation and we thought, what? If we don't do this, as big a risk as it is, will it be a regret? So we thought, what? We didn't have any children at the time. Let's do it. There's only things to be learned from it. So we sold up and we moved to France, and we hadn't a clue, did we? We had lots of very funny stories, doing things that we shouldn't be doing because we misinterpreted. We sat in waiting rooms for hours when we shouldn't be. But bit by bit, we learned the language, tried to settle in with the culture and so on. I carried on cycling and did lots of racing and whatnot. Matt was working, and I was working freelance back and forth from London. And then it came to the point, right, we've done all this, wouldn't it be lovely to start a family? So we were lucky enough to have Joey, and everything started off really well. And then when he was a tiny baby, things started getting a bit difficult. We thought we were rubbish parents because there was lots of crying at night, lots of up at night. And we thought, God, we'd heard so many positive things about isn't parenthood wonderful, this is a great support of your life. And we thought, this is awful, what have we done? This is terrible. Because it was very hard. And anyway, it turned out that we had to get some tests done. And it transpired that, unfortunately for Joe, he has a genetic illness, which both Matt and I are carriers for. At the time, it was in 2006, we were told that it was a progressive degenerative illness. So that means it evolved, and there wasn't any much hope for Joey. So we had to try and deal with that, and it was huge. And we were in a foreign country. There was nobody in the hospital at the time who could speak to us in English. And it was a very, very difficult time. And since then, we thought, right, there's not very much we can do. He has the genetic illness, which they call a rare illness. It's a form of leukodystrophy. Quite a big word, but there's 34 or so different types of leukodystrophy. And the adult form, I think it's like multiple sclerosis, where there are different types and different ways of brain attacking and doing its damage. But essentially the myelin, which coats all the nerves, isn't intact, so lots of messages that go from the brain to the body are lost. And we were told there's no medicine, there's no treatment, there's no cure. And at the time we thought it was progressive. And lots and lots of cases of leukodystrophies. It is progressive. And from the moment of diagnosis, we have a lot of friends who, a couple of years later, are no longer with us because this illness is very aggressive and a very horrible illness. So we had more information. We thought this is a rare illness, what are we going to do? So we did a load of research on the internet, tried to find who could we talk to. We were in France, and I was speaking to us in French. It didn't feel like we were understanding enough. And with some internet research, we came across a professor who was a one-man band, who discovered and was the one to discover the illness in Joey, which is the type of leukodystrophy, which is called acardiomegaly syndrome. And we contacted him, and at the same time we were contacting and looking into a charity called the European Leukodystrophy Association. And ELA, which is the shortened version for this word, were very active in France, and their patron is Zinedine Zidane, who we all know. And Matt's likes me because we met him and I literally fell at his feet and thought he was the most gorgeous thing alive. And we got to know how this charity works, how they operate, and their goal essentially is to, and they're the first researchers of Joey's illness, funding the research into Joey's illness. And they also support families, so help families like us to have little weekends away and have shared experiences together so that we have a common ground with other people who are in the same situation as us. So I'll pass you over to Matt to explain a little bit about ELA and how we got to know this charity. And then the link that hopefully we think was encouraged by us connecting this professor who we got to know, who discovered Joey's illness, and how we brought the two together and how we raised money to get a lot of things in motion. So I'll hand over to Matt to take over from here.
Hi everyone. Let's present a bit about history. So I'll talk and I'll do that in two parts. Firstly, I'll talk about fundraising we did and the great results we got, which are quite unexpected. And also, I'll talk a bit about the medical side as well of Joe's illness, because it's kind of interesting. It's had a horrible side effect on our son, but it's kind of might open your eyes up to some of the wonderful world of medicine and genetics and all the great things that are going on, how completely crazy some of the stuff is. So anyway, I'll start off with the fundraising. Obviously we found out Joe was gravely ill, really, and at the time it was very rare illness, supposedly, and he had a prognosis of about 18 months, according to the doctors. And we, of course, it was just an incredible thunderbolt out of the blue for your parents, like incredible shock. And of course, you feel one of the worst things you feel is totally powerless. Like, well, what can we do? We're not doctors, we're not medicine, we're not geneticists, we can't help our son. It's the worst thing a parent can feel, just totally helpless. And watching your own child suffer every day is just one of the worst feelings ever. So we were obviously in shock, and he's very happy these days, I might add. And we were like at a loss what to do. Like we're in our late 30s, you can't suddenly go to university and learn medicine or something like that, and try and come up with a miracle cure. Or there's no hope for that really, not at that age. And maybe there is, but we thought maybe a more practical approach might be to try and raise some money and contact someone who does know this sort of area and try and put them in contact with a charity, get them, and empower them to do, make some more progress. So, like I said, we came across this researcher in the UK called Yanni Crow, who is a specialist in Joseph's particular form of leukodystrophy. And we spoke to him over Skype one day, and he said, well, you know, we'd like to raise some money. Have you heard of this charity in France? There's also a charity in the UK as well, called the Mining Project. Have you heard of them? And he goes, yeah, well, not really, no. I said, well, you know, if you talk to them, you might get some funding. And I said, oh, I don't really believe it. It was a classic sort of scientist, you know, there's totally locked away. It's a stereotypical sort of Hollywood scientist, locked away in his laboratory doing research without any idea about how he might gain funding or sell himself to try and, you know, make progress with it. I said to him, well, you know, let's talk to these charities and see if you can get some money out of them and maybe, you know, improve your research. Well, I don't think that will work. Oh, okay, sorry. Well, leave it with us, we'll sort something out. So we went and got in contact with charities and said, you know, look, we're interested in raising some money. And our son has this form of leukodystrophy called Leukodystrophy. Oh yeah, we don't really know much about that. It's one of the rarer forms. At the time, there's only 50 cases in the whole world, supposedly. So yeah, basically, yeah, sure, go ahead, raise some money. Okay. So the idea at the time we had was, you know, using our experience of having done a bit of sport with triathlon and cycling. Well, let's go and do an event and raise some money. So the big problem for me at the time and Claire was, you know, if we were to do an event, it has to be something, you know, all our friends, they know we can do with like a reasonable level. We can't just go and do a marathon or a 10k run or something. They'll be laughing at us saying, you can't even do that in your sleep. So we thought we're going to have to do something a bit more impressive. So we thought, right, we'll do an Ironman triathlon, which is pretty much a 4 kilometre swim, 180 kilometre bike ride, and a marathon at the end. And so we would do that and use that to raise money. And the problem is, these events cost like €300 to enter. So can I just donate €300 to charity? Or, you know, what if I raise us 200 quid? It's like, I mean, I lost, you know. Well, we'll just raise some, well, so we weren't really sure, and then we kind of talked to people, that sounds like a great thing to do that, okay. Well, maybe we'll break even, hopefully. So we took a gamble, started training, because it had been about 10 years, or almost 10 years since I've done a new event like that. And so we thought, okay, we'll start training, and at the time we also started a blog. Blogs were quite big then, this is sort of pre-Facebook, I suppose. And so we started a blog where we talked about a bit about the history of Joe, our life, our day-to-day life, the medical aspects, but also the training, trying to combine the whole thing together and raise the sort of profile of what I was doing. And incredibly, it sort of just snowballed out of control, didn't it really? It went viral. I don't know if that means anything to you guys. There was just people we didn't even know, like writing comments and saying how they're in their office crying. It was a disaster, you know, they're not going to read it again, they can wait till they're at home and stuff like this. It was really inspiring, there was some really moving stuff, you know, we were talking about how, you know, there was a time when, you know, I was around a lot of people at work who were similar life stage to me, and they were having children, and they were all excited, you know, in the office they were talking about their kids and what they're up to, or they're skiing and this, and I just couldn't cope with it, I just walk out, you know, just to... And you don't, at the same time, you're also protecting yourself, you're also protecting them. You think, you know, if they say, oh, what's your kid doing nowadays? And you go, well, actually, he's from, you know, profoundly handicapped. Boom, silence. Okay. So you're kind of, you know, protecting each other really. So it's kind of getting difficult. So this was a great sort of, I know, it's like a coming out experience, writing the blog. Here, we've got a problem, you know, our child is very ill. We're trying to do our best to do something about it. Please help and support us. So everyone was just incredible, you know, really supportive, really helpful. So anyway, the blog took off, and that really raised the profile of the triathlon we were doing. And I went off and did the triathlon, and meanwhile I set up some kind of PayPal thing to collect money. And because we had a lot of friends in the UK, people in Ireland, people in France, you know, had a problem with currency, so well, let's raise money for a charity in the UK. And then those people who donate in the UK can pay sterling, and then you take advantage of tax rebates and stuff for charity fundraising. And same story in France, people who choose a charity in France, and people could raise money for, you know, French people could donate, or Irish people all in euros, so there's no wasted currency exchanges and stuff like that. And also in France in particular, there's a very good government rebate where if you donate €30, you get €20 back. So the government will put 66% towards it, which is quite impressive. So it's quite interesting, but the funny thing is, what we were up against in France was they have an incredible health service and state sort of support system. So in France, there's a real cultural difference to Ireland or the UK. You don't get, people do a Paris Marathon to run it, race it, do a time. It's not like the London Marathon or the New York Marathon, where everyone's doing it for fundraising. Completely opposite. That's because over there, there's a culture where, well, the state should look after people. I pay my taxes. So they don't do fundraising in France. It's kind of interesting. Anyway, I digress. So, we did the triathlon, and we set up a PayPal account to collect money, and it was clear that it was just going to be an absolutely incredible success. We were raising, just having these huge donations, and it was impressive. And I think by the time we actually did the race, and I remember running over the finish line with Joseph, and I think at that moment there was lots of. Also, at that time, I think we raised about 25,000, I think, in total for the two charities. And then the incredible spin-off was that there was also other people doing events, like
Bike for Joe,
Run for Joe,
Jam for Joe,
yeah.
Garden for Joe.
Whether it's sporting events or coffee mornings or cake mornings, and everyone was doing their own little bit, John did something, did you at one time? You did a run, you did a run as well, I think it was on the bottom. Yeah.
And now to the baking on morning, coffee morning.
Yeah. So these are the smaller events still kind of accumulated, and I think in the end we raised near about 45,000, 50,000 in total, including all the different events, which was a lot more than the original 300 we were worried about. So we did very, very well, and because when we gave this money, especially to the charity ELA in France, they were just completely astounded. It was the most any single person ever raised. And the funny thing is, it's always sometimes you just have to try something to see what the side effects are, because there's always unexpected little consequences sometimes. Here we had a very positive consequence, and that was they wrote this and they thought, this is a kind of good system, maybe we should look a bit more about it. This couple have raised this much money, maybe we should focus a bit more on that. So they got in touch with the researcher in the UK, and they said, right, we'll give you some, come along and do a talk at the next annual meeting of charity. And so we came along and did that, and then he presented the research that he was doing to their science foundation in the charity. And they were very interested in the work he was doing. They said, why haven't you contacted us before? This is really interesting research you're doing. So they went, right, we'll give you some funding. So they gave him funding of 200,000, which is a lot more than the 50,000 we raised. Oh, wow, okay. And he was completely blown away. So I could buy a new machine to study DNA and look for more genes, and Joseph's illness is caused by any one of perhaps, well, at the time it was like 3 or 4 genes, and so since then it's about 2 or 3 more genes that cause his illness, and that's important because it actually means that when you don't know what genes are causing genetic illness, it means that we effectively can't have children. It's going to be a massive gamble, because the doctors, when you're pregnant, can't do any tests to find out, or can't do any checks on embryos and things like that to see whether that embryo has mutated or bad genes. Right, so if you don't know the genes to look for, there's no chance of playing roulette. So just discovering the genes is already a very important step, because it allows parents to perhaps have other children. So that was interesting. So since then he had this machine, meant he could now find more genes that cause the illness. So he got that funding, brilliant. He was able to also hire a couple of postgrads to work with him, and made much more progress. In addition, because he'd made more progress, that raised his profile a bit more. And next thing, 2 years later, he's got more research, made some more interesting advances, and then then suddenly the European Union became interested in the work he was doing. And in fact, one of the pieces of research he found was that Joseph, and I come on to the sort of medical side in a moment, but just to sum up, Joseph's illness is somehow related to HIV and AIDS. This HIV somehow interacts with the same part of the immune system that's not working properly in Joe to be so dangerous. That's how it gets in. So they found this interaction between the part of the immune system that's not quite working in Joe and AIDS. So there's somehow hope that if they understand Joe's illness better, it might be able to make a massive advance solving AIDS and HIV. So it's quite interesting. Anyway, so the researcher in the UK, made this sort of step where he kind of saw that, perhaps there's a relation. Suddenly, the EU jumped on it. Right, €5 million, off you go, do some more research. And so he set up this big, got all the researchers together across the world, including people researching AIDS in the US. People in France as well. So there's this huge network of scientists all researching Joseph's illness, because now it's somehow linked to AIDS. So it's not just 50 kids in the world, it's now perhaps a lot of people in the world that could benefit from understanding his illness a bit better. So it's just totally snowballed, and perhaps, in some little way, what we did unexpectedly has started that snowball rolling. And we've never ever have expected it. It just goes to show that sometimes, you do what you can, it's worth trying to take a little bit of a gamble now and again, and you can achieve great things. And it just shows as well that every little, thing you do, go and do a charity event or something, perhaps your little bit of money you raise is going to be a drop in the ocean, or it's not really going to change the big picture. But here, suddenly, all those cake warnings and everything accumulating, bang, suddenly we made a huge step, and perhaps it's going to affect hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people in the world.
Last year we had news that as a result of all that funding and research, the first clinical trial for Joey's particular illness will take place this year. Now we personally won't be involved as the first step because Joey's stable and we didn't want to take the risk while he's stable to do that trial. But for other children who are at a critical point and are just new to the illness, and that's the time when they call it a massive crisis during the illness. For them, there'll be 24 put on trial. For them, it could make a huge difference. So maybe for the second trial, we'll see what the results are from the first, and then possibly take the risk for Joe. But it's staggering because it shortcut probably 20 years of work by getting all that funding.
Yeah. Since then, pro research has been coming to the ELA medical research every year, and he's now got this incredible bond with it. And Anita's office says, I can't believe how.
Yeah, the way to convince them, you need to get in touch. But I'm managing away. I'm like, no. You need to get out there and make contact.
So sometimes, you feel powerless, but if you kind of just sit down and think about, okay, how can we try and do what we can? And
connect with people and communicate. And it's like that. It's small steps can lead to big changes.
Yeah. So I think on the fundraising side, we haven't done it much since, but we have been much more involved in the ELA, and we've been going to various different charity events they organise.
So we're family representatives for ELA in our region. So it's like in Munster, we represent families for any particular event. So we do football events or anything that needs presence for ELA in that area. We turn up with Joe, and he's become a little bit of a celebrity in the region.
Yeah. Met the President of France. He's going to a snowboarding half-pipe competition
2 days with the former Wimbledon champion, Bertoli. So he's his foot in the door with all the good-looking girls.
I think as well what we found with the charity is that it's an incredible, for us personally, there's the research aspect, which is great, and it's more of a long-term thing. And then there's a day-to-day where they're, what we found is like a big family, we're very supportive. So we do lots of big events like go to Centre Parks together, or go to Euro Disney or whatever. And they're fantastic events because they bring all the families together. All the staff in these places are very much committed to helping, and you don't feel like you're the odd ones out somehow. If we, for us, I mean, the difficult things, the day-to-day, it's hard. There's times when you're walking in the park and you come across a bunch of swings or whatever, and little kids are playing around, and you just kind of steer away. It's too hard to deal with.
But also
They're
not adapted, they're not accessible. And, like for me, he's 30 kilos now. To put him on a slide, I know he wants me on a slide, but I have to lift him. I might do it once, but it's backbreaking. And you think, all I need to do is put in a swing that is adapted to him. So another small sideline is trying to make small step changes is where you live. I've decided I'm on the local council, and I'm responsible now for accessibility issues in the village. And it's a huge to try and just change people's mentality, because if you're not in the situation, you often don't think like that. From steps there in the way, doors that are too narrow. As a child, he absolutely loves interacting and being with other kids his own age. But nobody stopped him. A lot of people don't stop to think that, because he's in a wheelchair, or he doesn't have the voice or the right. I think, well, we have to represent that for every child or every adult who is disabled. They have a right to have fun and interact. And it's trying to make things as accessible as possible. So, I mean, for you, for your the next generation, is to all that we can ask us of living it is open your minds to how can you best make society available to everyone. And we watched what's the program? There was a building houses program on. We watched it the other night, and there was a mum, she was looking after the child on respite, and something she said was there's actually no such thing as disability in society. It's society can often be the disabled one, because disability wouldn't be a problem if things were adapted. That's so true, because you just want to get on with your day to day, and when simple things are a hassle, that's what demoralises you, because you have to do another lift, another push, and these things can be so simple with just a bit of thought, a bit of open-mindedness, making things that little bit more accessible.
So, shall I talk a bit about the genetics or the medicine of it, or who's interested in? I'll talk a little bit about it then. Now, I might add that actually, when I was at school and university, I wasn't interested in biology at all, and I like machines and stuff and computers. So this is all new to me. And I have to say, I mean, one of the it's terrible. My son is ill with a genetic illness, but it has opened my eyes up to this whole world of medicine, and it's fascinating. So hopefully, what I communicate today is your curiosity. It will open your mind. It's just incredible. So what we found with Joey Swift, first of all, his illness isn't so rare. Initially they thought only 50 cases in the world. But his illness is actually heavily misdiagnosed. It actually sort of looks like other illnesses. So we're actually now thinking that there's actually perhaps hundreds of thousands of cases like Joe. They've just been misdiagnosed as some kind of problem during birth, like they've probably heard of plasminosis or rubella. Drinking for a pregnant mother can really damage the child, and that's often misdiagnosed. It's actually So this is where we come on to fascinating. So the main symptom of Joe's illness is that the immune system, it's an autoimmune illness, kind of like, I suppose, diabetes, or eczema, or multiple sclerosis, it seems. And effectively what happens is the body's autoimmune system, think of protection from bugs and things, attacks itself. So the main thing it seems to attack is all the insulation. I think of it like an electric cable with a plastic insulation on it. It attacks that, it's called the myelin, and all the nerves. So same sort of symptoms, same side effects as multiple sclerosis, and that means that any signals going from the brain to the muscles and that are lost or become very weak. So Joseph is very kind of floppy because his muscles don't get the right signals. He also has the other side of the coin is that he doesn't feel burning. Like he might put his hand on the fire and not feel it immediately. So you have to be careful about around hot things. So sensory as well. So that's the symptoms. The thing with his particular, so that's common to all leukodystrophies. In Joseph's case, it seems that it happens very early on, like while the mother is pregnant and while the baby is developing in the womb. And it peaks, this attack, where the body's attacking itself, peaks just after birth. It can quite often result in the death of the child. If it doesn't, then there's permanent damage done. But it seems now that the condition remains stable, so it's not progressive. Many other leukodystrophies are really really horrible in that the child seems completely normal until they're like teenagers. Suddenly one day they fall over, and then 6 months later they're not able to walk anymore, and then a year later they're dead. So it's like a stealth. You think the child is perfectly okay, at school, university, whatever. Suddenly, a year later you've lost them. And you have no idea. You may have had 3 other children. And you think, oh gosh, the oldest is ill, maybe the others are. You don't know. And then you have tests, and it's too late to do anything about it. So Joe, these illnesses can be extremely severe. We're lucky with Joe, really, surprisingly, in that he was compared to other children with his exact same illness, not that severe, and is now just the happiest child you could ever hope to have, really. He's just always smiling and messing around and full of mischief, so we're very, very lucky. So genetically what's going on is you have, who's heard of DNA here? Okay, of course. Right, good. So, in each of our cells in our body we have DNA, which is like a computer program or recipe, telling us how to make our body. So it's like a set of instructions, and we effectively have, actually 2 copies, in fact, of the computer program or recipe. One we get from our mum, and one we get from our dad. So there's some sort of fail-safe in there. If one copy is kind of a bit faulty, we choose a good copy, right? So you might have a bit of your DNA saying, right, this person will have blue eyes, and the other copy might say brown eyes. And so there's a dominant, there's sort of different genes that compete, and some of them win. So if you've got a gene for blue eyes and brown eyes, you'll end up with brown eyes, right? In Joseph's case, there's genes there that code for his immune system. And what we found is, unfortunately for Joe, there's a bit of the immune system that doesn't work because, in fact, he's inherited a bad copy of the program. It's got a fault in it from me, and a bad copy also from Mum, Collete. So when it comes to choosing which copy to use, which copy of the instructions, there's no choice. Both are bad. So, this is quite common with all genetic illnesses. So, unfortunately what that means is because then we have 2 copies each. I've got a good copy and a bad copy. Colette's got a good copy and a bad copy. So, there's a random selection that goes on during birth where there's, which copy do we inherit from our parents? Well, it's random. So, hence there's like a 1 in 4 chance. Joe's got a bad copy from both of us. He could have got a good copy, or he could have got a good copy and a bad copy, but he got 2 bad copies. So you've got 1 in 4 chance
she's not even a carrier. She doesn't even have one bag. Now, the fascinating thing, firstly, the first fascinating fact was, when they did the study on our genes, imagine you might have a chapter in you've got a big book, and each chapter encodes for eyes, or height, or hair colour, or whatever. Or there's a page there in that book that encodes for this bit of the immune system, Joe. And you can have a thought on any part of the book, on any part of that page, a typo, something like that. And if you just make a whole page back. So you only need to have a thought somewhere on that page of the book from both copies, and bang, you're in trouble. But in the funny case, in our case, it's particularly odd because we've got the same typo. It's the same word on the page, you see what I mean? It's exactly wrong. This is a weird coincidence. What that actually means is that we're somehow cousins. But the funny thing is, before you go, the funny thing is, they found that there's lots of other people with the exact same problem. Some of those people are Indian or African. So it's like, oh, hang on a minute. So they can actually trace all the way back because they know that, through the fossil record or whatever, that Indians left Africa at a certain time, or Irish people, Northern Europeans left Africa, so they can trace all the way back and say, okay, you had a common parent about 45,000 years ago. And that's pretty much it. We're cousins. Probably 45,000 years ago. Common parent. And then we met. Damn it. What up?
And I just always learned to find it.
I always knew you were one in a million. So that's the first incredible thing we found. Wow, that's kind of fascinating. So the next thing was, they didn't really understand what was causing Joseph's illness. They found there's a fault in the immune system, but the bit of the immune system they didn't understand at all. They had absolutely no idea what's this stuff doing. They could find that there were some weird things going on, but it made it look like there was some kind of huge viral attack going on in the child, and it was causing untold damage. But they couldn't really, it was this huge new part of the immune system they just didn't have any understanding of. So they looked at it, and did lots of research and could see what was going on. It looked like somehow something inside the cell was being misunderstood as a virus, and somehow the cell was basically setting off an alarm. The immune system came in, and the cells were self-destructing. And so hence it would be misdiagnosed as some virus or whatever. And well, in fact, funny enough, they then found there was a virus, except it's a funny one. In fact, what they found is that in our DNA, we have pages in a big recipe book or computer program, encoding for a hair colour and eye colour, etc. Yeah, that's there. It's only about 1% of our DNA, on a very simple percentage. About 50% of our DNA is virus. So, in fact, over millions of years, viruses like flu or HIV and stuff, and the way they work is they sneak in, they get their bit of computer program or DNA, and insert it into our DNA or mammal or whatever animal, and just sort of cut and paste it in there, and then sneak off again. And then the machinery inside the cells kind of just goes through, reading okay, I need to make that, need to make that, need to make that, and so it makes the virus. Because it kind of reads the instructions, just following instructions. So it makes a virus, and that's how viruses spread like that inside us. But some of them are particularly successful. Millions of years ago, they put their DNA inside our DNA, and the immune system is going, oh, okay, leave that there, we're just trying, we spotted it, we'll just keep it under guard and try and control it. So there's part of our immune system, the bit that's not working in Joe, it's like the guards inside us, in our cells, that have all this viral stuff in there, and it's all trying to reproduce and make us ill all the time. Except that part of our immune system knows about it, and come on, it's like keeping them in prison, keeping them there the whole time, under lock and key, making sure they don't do anything naughty. That's 50% of our DNA. It's
It's made up of these viruses. It's in their permanently. We've inherited it from millions of years ago. And so, sure enough, this is like the guards in the prison aren't working with Joe. They're not working properly at all. So the viruses now suddenly start doing their thing and leak out and make it look like he's ill. And then we have this huge immune response in every single cell that then causes all the side effects. And it seems that after a while, the body does suddenly register, oh, okay, this is right, somehow reacts and somehow figures out what to do, so hence it stabilises after a while. So it's kind of interesting. And then what they have found since then is that HIV and a couple of other viruses, I'm sure, actually take advantage of this part of the immune system that's working in Joe. So they've found that if they give, say, mice Joe's illness, they become immune to HIV, completely immune. So, suddenly it's like, oh, right, okay, so obviously we tweak that part of the immune system, we can somehow, interact with HIV and make the person or animal or whatever immune. Because today, HIV, yes, we've got well-known medications that can, control it, but it's not in control. You have to take drugs, and lots of them for the whole of your life. It's very safe, but it's still very expensive. So in countries like Africa, they can't afford these drugs. So it's very important to try and come up with maybe a vaccine for one of them. So it looks like somehow Joe's illness could be perhaps the key to having a vaccine. Similarly, what they've also found is that if they give Joe or children like Joe very early on in his illness, the same drugs used for HIV, suddenly the illness has a much more reduced effect. So it looks like there's a sort of triangle. You give the HIV drugs to children with his illness, and suddenly they're safe. The damage is much less somehow. And similarly, you give Joseph's illness to perhaps people and they become immune to HIV. They didn't have Joseph's illness, which isn't so good. So, but it's some kind of, they're kind of getting closer. They're starting to understand how these things work, and that's really where you see all this stuff going. Like a lot of consequences, the money we raise, causes snowball to start rolling. Research we found, they never realised that Joe's illness, they thought only had, impacted 50 people in the world. Now it could actually impact a lot of people. So it's been an incredible journey for us, and I think it's really opened our eyes up to the incredible sort of science all behind how bodies work, and DNA and genetics and evolution, that we're cousins from 50,000 years ago. It's incredible.
And also on the charity side, it's opened our eyes, because we have heard, and everybody's suspicious as well sometimes, because when you do fundraising, when you do raise money for charities, because it's being spent in the right place, is it doing good? And we personally have a very close connection now with this charity. If you just watch this video, we know personally the majority of them, the whole team behind the charity, what they do, and it's absolutely incredible. So we keep going singing their praises, and hopefully one day, we would love that there is an antenna. There's an antenna for ELA in most of the European countries now, except Ireland, and maybe one day, once I have a bit more time, maybe it's something I could do with maybe some futures volunteer to set up an antenna here in Ireland, because it's a story I don't know anything about, the number of cases of leukodystrophy in Ireland. There's a lot of work to be done, but they're out there. They might be misdiagnosed, they might be going abroad for some treatment. I don't really know fully, but there's a path there to be